Thank you. All right, we've got a award. Who's gonna do that? Come on down.
Ed Christensen, you mind coming up here? Come on up, Ed. Ed thinks we're here to discuss high density housing. Excuse me, fast, sorry.
One of those.
So each year, Spanish Fork Parks and Recreation, in accordance in our relationship with the Central Utah Recreation and Parks Association, recognizes an outstanding volunteer in our community. And this year is Ed Christensen. And Ed's been volunteering long before I started working for the city. But I'm going to share one memory I have with him that started from the beginning. It's 12 years ago. We finished our baseball season, and his son was moving up in a league, and I was like, Ed, I hate to lose you. You've been such a good volunteer. He's like, oh, it's all right. I'll be back. So he let his kid move on, and he stayed and volunteered had no family or anything like that. And ever since then, too, Ed has helped with our fishing program. How many years have you done that for now?
8. Yeah.
At least 8 years, yeah. Ed is salt of the earth. We love Ed. We appreciate him. We cherish the time that he's put and given to the youth in our community. And so with that said, long overdue, but we'd like to award Ed with our Volunteer of the Year award through KERPA. So thanks, Ed. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
You're not going to give us a speech?
Thank you.
Yeah, there you go. That's a great speech. Thanks, Ed. Thanks for all you've done. We appreciate that. All right, let's open this up for public comments. Anyone that would like to come and address the mayor and the council, you may come on up and have your 3 minutes of fame. Seeing none, we'll go to council comments. Councilman Gordon.
Nothing for me, Mayor.
Councilman Mendenhall.
Thank you, Mayor. Really quick, Ed just left, but a great guy. Speak to his involvement in recreation programs. It took a 10-minute conversation of him and I talking about a team I was coaching a few years ago, and the next day at work, he had a bucket full of baseballs that he says, here's your balls, and go coach him up. So good guy that has always paid it forward in the recreation program, and proud to know him, proud to know his family, good people. So thank you. Thanks a lot. The Chamber of Commerce, a couple of announcements there. Mayor, let me bring it up. Here it is. This week we have a ribbon cutting on Thursday for Rich Cope as a realtor. Many of us know Rich. That'll be outside the city offices at noon for Rich. The other announcement regarding the chamber, I don't see Heather here, so I'm not taking this thunder away from her, but the trick or treat not on Main, so there's an addition to that due to all things COVID that have changed a whole lot in our lives. The trick or treat on Main will have a little bit different feel to it this year. So it'll be a drive-through trick or treating at the sports park. So if your kids still want to participate, that'll be Saturday, October 24th from 1 to 3 p.m. It'll be on Volunteer Drive there at the sports park, and there will be businesses there. 3 points on that: kids and families to stay in their car. Candy will be handed out to the driver, and then you can post your costumes on Facebook to win a prize as well. So look for more information from the chamber on that, but that'll be held October 24th. The South County Business Summit that the chamber is involved in will be Wednesday, October 28th at 9 a.m. That'll be a Zoom business meeting as well. So if you're a business in South County, the Chamber of Commerce is down in this area, are going to come together and do this business summit on the 28th at 9 a.m. Usually some good speakers and some good information that comes out of that. Thanks to the Chamber for all they do in a different time for business all across the country, but here in Spanish Fork too, they're active in trying to help as many businesses as they can do as well as they can. So we appreciate them. Reporting from a citizen this afternoon that let me know the signal at the intersection of 8th North and 8th East that we all know pretty well, right there in front of SAG's gas station, or excuse me, S&S gas station, and Highway 6. The light is on. That's the first time I knew that, but the light's on. And they just commented on how that has affected in a good way the intersection there and the travel of the movement to get on Highway 6, get off Highway 6, and get where you need to go. The signals were timed and everything, so hopefully that's a good thing. Obviously with some businesses that are coming in there that will attract even more people off Highway 6, good timing to have that completed. My last report is the League of Cities and Towns. We had a board meeting yesterday that I participated in, and the CARES Act funds are being discussed. Again, Mayor and the mayors of Utah County have done a good job in working out the portion of our city funds from the county and working with the county on that aspect. Other counties in the state have not come to the same agreement, and so the discussion from the league was some of the counties up and down the Wasatch Front, but not Utah County included, because we've already got that deal with our county, is reducing their take or their part of those CARES Act funds from the Treasury to increase those to go to other parts of the state that have been affected. I think I mentioned this last time, but places like Moab, Park City, some of the smaller communities that are heavily affected due to travel and tourism being down in our state and in those communities. So some good work there of working on those funds and making sure we stay healthy across the state through this time period. One last thing that I wanted to mention, because I saw it today, and you can find this on YouTube or on social media, but I was led to a video of the two candidates for Utah governor today, Spencer Cox and Chris Peterson. And you can watch it. It's only, 30 seconds or something. But basically, they're saying, hey, we're running against each other, but there's good ideas on both sides, and basically bringing civility to politics, which seems like two opposite ends of the spectrum right now. So you can search it and find it, but I wanted to say that publicly in a way. I've met both men, I've met both of their families, and I can tell you both are impressive people and come with great accolades. They come with different ideas of how to get us to where they think we should be as a state, but again, those ideas should be discussed, debated, and not people's personal attacks or things like that we find in politics a whole lot. So just wanted to invite residents and people, as you're making your decisions with ballots out, to look at stuff like that and remember that politics, always local, I think, are very good, but in a national and a state sense too, keeping that civility, I think, is important and speaks well of us as Spanish Fork folks, but Utahns altogether. That's all I have, Mayor.
Great. I failed to mention that Councilman Scobes is not with us tonight. He's got a family issue tonight, a good issue, nothing bad. So he was with his family tonight. All right, Council Member Back.
I just have one thing. We as in the Fiesta Days Committee are looking for a volunteer to be over the children's parade. So if you, your family, a group of friends, anyone is interested in volunteering your time to oversee the children's parade next Fiesta Days and possibly for the next couple of years, maybe just reach out to me directly or one of our committee chair members and talk to us about more details. That's all I have.
Great. Councilman Argal.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to express that you should have got your ballot in the mail. Get it filled out, get it turned in. Early voting started today in Utah County. So you can visit one of those sites and cast your vote. It counts, I promise. It does, especially this year. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Let's move on to Spanish Work 101, UTA. My good friend, Commissioner Millington.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity to come and give you a report. There's a couple of things that I've kind of switched the order and that I'm going to cover these things.
You can take your mask off if you want. You're 6 feet away, and if you...
Well, I'm more
Yes.
comfortable this way.
Yes, Councilman Gordon can't hear very good.
Well, I wanted to change up a little bit the way I was going to present this. So first of all, I want to start by saying that the COVID has really impacted UTA as well. Pre-COVID, we were carrying about 160,000 plus people a day. By the 1st of April this year, we were down to about 38,000. So that's about a 75% decline. We are now back up to about 66,000 a day. So we're coming back in our ridership, but nevertheless, we've been impacted fairly significantly, as you might expect. Some of the things that we did in response to COVID was we increased very significantly the cleaning of all of the buses and cars on the rails and tracks to every day, every night. So that was an additional expense that we had not planned on, but nevertheless we undertook because it was necessary for the safety of our employees and our riders. We were able to adjust, by early April, we adjusted our service. We cut about 50% of the service throughout the system. But in August, we reinstituted up to about 90%. So we're running about 90% now of what we were doing pre-COVID in offering the service. Our ridership certainly hasn't rebounded significantly. Many people are still working from home, as most of us are. And so the ridership will come back probably a bit slower. But those are things that we have done. Now, as a result of the cuts in ridership and in service, we were able to save a significant amount of money, both in diesel fuel, because we were not using nearly as much fuel that we were. But we also reduced the overtime that we were paying our operators. We did not have to terminate any operators as a result of COVID. We simply reduced the overtime and made whatever adjustments, and instead of driving, they were cleaning and doing other kinds of things for us that were necessary. So that's kind of the response that we've had to COVID. We're still making it mandatory to wear a mask anytime you're on a UTA vehicle. And we make that announcement constantly. And we have masks available in all of our buses and trains so that people, if they don't happen to have one, can get one. But that's what we're doing currently. So that's been the response to COVID. Now, another couple of things that I want to report to you and then get to the issue that was brought to my attention last evening. There's 3 studies that I want to briefly highlight for you. The first study starts in Salt Lake County, actually. It's the Point of the Mountain study, looking at how we can effectively increase transit service coming out of Salt Lake County in the south end of Salt Lake County into the north end of Utah County. That's been called our Point of the Mountain study. It has been reported out. The mode has not been determined for sure yet, but the alternative routes have been identified. That is, starting in Sandy, we would go from Sandy. One route would be to take it on the west side of the freeway down to the Draper Frontrunner station, then through and service the prison site that's going to be developed over the next several years, and then extend to the east side of the freeway at about 146 South and come up over into Lehigh, terminating that particular route at about the Adobe building. It's in that area for an identifying marker. So from Sandy to North Lehigh, that study has been done. The consideration now is, should we make it bus to begin with, a bus rapid transit system, or do we use light rail? And that discussion is lively, as you might anticipate, and is ongoing. We hope to have some decisions made by the end of this year. And it might actually be that we will start with a bus system first because that's easiest and least expensive to implement, and then over time maybe move to a light rail system. The second study I would call your attention to is what we call the Central Corridor Study. That starts in North Lehigh at the southern terminus of the study I just mentioned, somewhere near Adobe, and basically runs down Highway 89, State Street, through Lehigh, American Fork, Linden, Pleasant Grove, down to Provo, running down past the hospital, ending at the Provo Frontrunner station. That's called the Central Corridor Study. That has been determined that they want it to be a bus rapid transit system. We might actually use the rail line as the dedicated lanes for the buses. But all of the mayors along that entire corridor have agreed that they would like that kind of a system, that bus rapid transit system. There would be a little jog in there to run down to Vineyard, to the new Vineyard Frontrunner station that is currently being constructed and should be in operation by midsummer next year. The third study that I want to point out to you is what we're calling the South County Study. That includes you. This is a study that looks at the transit needs and opportunities from the Provo Frontrunner station to Santaquin. And so that study is just getting started. While the other two are reporting out their results and have been ongoing for about a year, the South County study is just getting started. And it will look at how do we increase the transit services and in what way to service this particular area right here. And that's what this study is all about. Now, I want you to think about the corridor that I've just outlined. From Sandy to Santaquin is about 55 miles. We are actively looking at creating very dedicated services, transit services, along a 55-mile route. That's almost as long as the entire Frontrunner route from Ogden to Provo. And so we're undertaking some very significant increases in the services that we're looking at. Now, in conjunction with this South County study, there's been called to my attention a problem with the Sharp-Tintic Railroad line and some consideration and some concern about what UTA is doing. I've even heard it whispered that UTA was going to abandon that project. Please let me disabuse you of that notion. We are actively pursuing that corridor. We are looking at it. We know we've got to solve that Sharp-Tintic problem. We know that some money has been raised, but it turns out to be not sufficient to complete both the development study and the engineering study and the construction. So what we're trying to figure out how to do is to take some of the funds that have already been raised and start the study that does the development work, all of the engineering work and environmental work that needs to be done to make this a feasible project. And while we're doing that, vigorously go after some additional funding that will enable us then to make the change. We know we're somewhere between $2.5 and $4 million short. We had hoped to receive a grant from the FRA, the Federal Railroad Administration. We were not given that grant recently. That doesn't mean that we're out of the running for any future grants. So what we're trying to do is to figure out a way to do the development work, send the signals both to the cities and to UP that we are intent on getting this done so that we can move forward, and then in the meantime scour the corners of everything we can to come up with that additional shortfall so we can build this, make the changes that we need to. So I wanted to report that and then open it up for any questions you may have, because I know that there's some concern here in the South County for what UTA is doing, specifically about the sharp tintic, but in the other services that we might be providing. So I'll stop there, Mayor, and open it up for any questions you may have.
Questions?
That'd get answered, Chris. Okay. I think we're good.
I have a question about, this is what we get from our residents, Kent, so you could speak to this a lot more detailed maybe than I could to the residents, but just in general, so 15 years ago, thereabouts, you know, Spanish Fork is a population of maybe 20,000 people, maybe not quite that, and now we're 44,000 people.
Today. And growing.
And growing, probably the fastest growing in South Utah County.
Right.
Doubling in population, but also increasing largely in our sales tax base, which
Right.
is the avenue that we pay, that our residents, all of us residents pay into UTA. Now, I'm not so naive to know that the funds that we put into UTA as taxpayers going elsewhere in the state, you know, doesn't help us. It does help us because we have to get on the freeway and go different places.
And your citizens ride Front Runner into Salt Lake and other
Correct,
places.
correct. They drive,
Yes.
you know, over north to get on it and
Sure.
get into Salt Lake. But I guess that's the question we sometimes get from our residents is if,
Why?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Why?
three
Why
buses 15 years ago, 3 buses today
Right.
in Spanish Fork as far as service, and the sales tax has maybe gone up to, you know, from 3 million to 10 million.
It's certainly gone up, whatever it's.
Correct.
It hasn't gone down.
Correct, and that's good work, good planning for not just us, but previous, you know, people in the city to make that happen. And so they do ask us sometimes, hey, we know it's got to be increased of what we're paying into UTA. What are we getting for it?
Let me address that
Thank you.
specifically.
Thank you.
That same issue was raised a year ago when I was visiting Eagle Mountain and Saratoga Springs. And so we have put together a study group out in Eagle Mountain, Saratoga Springs to look at how we can better serve their growing populations, because they have the same issue. We're paying money in, we're not so sure we're getting even close to an equitable return on that investment. And so that's a big concern. Today we kicked off the study at Eagle Mountain and Saratoga Springs that should be reported out by January. Last week we started the South County study that I mentioned from Provo to Santaquin. We're looking very specifically at these issues, the very issues your residents are raising. We are addressing those by this study. How do we effectively increase the transit services that we deliver in the South County? We know this is growing, we know it's going to continue to grow, and we've got to address those services, and the service that we give to your residents and the residents in the South County, we've got to enhance that significantly. And so we are attempting to do that. We're going to study this over the next few months. There will be considerable discussions with you. There will be time for public input from your residents. All of that is just getting started here in the South County. We want to know from your residents, where are they going? What would be, are they going all the way to Salt Lake? Do they go to Thanksgiving Point? Where are they going to go to work, to go to school? What kind of services can we render in an effective way to use the funds that we do have? We don't have an unlimited amount of funds, of course, but the funds that we do have, we need to use in a way that's effectively moving your people and giving them options of how to move from home to work, to play, to school.
Well, in that notion, I think as you look into it, you'll find Spanish Fork is probably on the leading edge of active transportation plans that way, of other modes of transportation to get around town versus the conventional car that we're trying to, educate and do ourselves and say, okay, how do we get from A to B without maybe congesting traffic again?
Right.
So we're excited to work with you on that. I think you'll find that we're trying to lead out on some of that too. And
Well, we welcome your participation, and we will be, I think somebody here should have been contacted for participation in that study that's ongoing. If you haven't been, please let me know, because you will be. I'll make sure of that.
Great.
Because this study is to address that very issue, Councilman.
Thanks, Ken.
Do you know how long it'll take to get the study done?
We anticipate this study is going to take until probably at least the early part of the summer next year to do a thorough job, because we've got to go all the way to Santaquin from Provo. So it's involving everybody and looking at all the possible corridors and all the possible modes, both rail, because we own the railroad tracks that end in Payson, as you know. And so we're looking at the extension of Front Runner down to Payson at least, and then bus rapid transit systems similar to what we're looking at in the northern part of that big long corridor from Sandy to Santaquin. Other questions?
Just one from me.
Please.
City Manager Seth Perrins. I was actually a part of that meeting that we had on the South County kickoff, and a couple of other staff members, and I think Mary and your consulting team.
Delamar Schaefer,
Yeah, and
Laura
your
Hansen, and
yeah, Laura and
Heather.
Anyways, yeah, the consultants, they've reached out. We'll have a meeting. I know they wanted to meet with the mayor, and if mayor, you want to have some other council members involved, that he can do that. So we'll do that probably the first part-ish of November. So I think
Yes.
that's going, which is great. Thank you for
Yes.
that. Thank you for your comments about that sharp tintic line. I certainly have been one that has heard whisperings or rumblings or rumors or concerns and worries that it might die. And this
It is not going to die.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's
I've been
wonderful.
talking to our executive director and the head of our planning department
you.
and the chief engineer today,
Good, thank
because
you.
I was alerted last night that this might
Good.
be an issue.
And it's a big concern for us, not just us, Spanish Fork, Springville, is that I think it'll eliminate 6 or 7 crossings, which are good to make that area safer. So thank you for that update. That's wonderful.
And part of the reason we want to see if we can split some of the money off and do the development work is to send a strong signal to Union Pacific so that they don't get excited about forcing you to put in some
Yeah.
what would eventually turn out to be unnecessary expenditures for
Yeah.
crossings.
Yeah, have you heard that they're not really, but kind of holding us a little bit hostage on one crossing where we're trying to cross over their tracks?
That
with
was
one
to
of our
put it
main-
mildly, but yes, that's what I've heard.
Okay.
That's part of the reason why I jumped on it this morning and
Thank you.
started
Yeah,
some conversations, and I'm going to have some more conversations tomorrow
thank you.
to see if we can't figure out an interim way to bridge that funding gap so that we can get on with this.
Wonderful. Yeah, this would be, this area where we're struggling to get across the railroad tracks will open up a belt route that will alleviate 1 or 2 major congestion areas that we have.
Right.
But we've hit that railroad track wall, if you will, so thank you. That's very,
You
very
bet.
helpful.
Any other questions, Mayor?
If not, just get the front runner down here. I get more of residents ask me, when are we going to get the front runner down here at
That
Spanish
is-
Fork? Because
that
I think
is
they'll
a-
use that more than your buses.
That is a very active piece of the study that we're looking at. Carolyn Gannott, our executive director, and I have been down to Payson, down at the end of the line, looking at where the MTech is building their campus. And we're looking at the station sites there. UVU will eventually build a campus. They bought that 38 acres.
Right.
And we're looking to put a station there. Then there would be one here in Spanish Fork someplace, one in Springville, and maybe one or two in places along the way.
That'd
But
be good.
that's a very active piece of what we're looking at.
Great, great, because I know every one of us, these council members and myself, will be your first riders once that's here.
Good.
So hurry. Thanks, Kent.
Thank you.
All
We
right, Mayor,
appreciate
thank
your
you very
work, and
much.
thanks for coming and reporting to us.
Absolutely.
It's
Thank
good
you
to
for
see you, my
allowing me.
friend.
Thank you.
Okay, UDOT, you get to do your little report.
Thanks, Mayor and Council, for letting us come and present to you guys tonight. My name is Brian Atkinson. I work with Horrocks Engineers. I'm a consultant that UDOT has hired to help them with the environmental assessment on looking at a new interchange on I-15. They're at the existing 1600 South, 2700 North bridge. They're on the north side of your city there. And Darren Bunker is here from UDOT. He is the project manager for the project. And again, thanks for letting us come and present to you tonight. We are just about ready to go out and have a public meeting next week. So we wanted to come and present to you guys tonight a lot of the information we're going to share with the residents along that corridor and within our study area, just so you guys have, a heads up of what they're going to hear. We will answer any questions you might have tonight, and then give you some information in case people contact you of how to get to our project team, so that they can answer any questions people may have for the project. So this first slide that we have tonight here kind of just shows the project study area. So again, we are looking at a new interchange on I-15 where that existing bridge is there at 2700 North, as well as looking at the corridor for 2700 North and 1600 South from Main Street in Spanish Fork over to SR 51 or State Street. You'll notice that we don't go over to US 89. That will be the next project that'll come along this way, along this corridor. But for our study, we stopped at SR 51 there. So if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide. So we've been working on this about a year. Last November, we held a scoping meeting with the public, started getting some feedback and input from those along the corridor. We've been doing a lot of traffic analysis, as well as meeting with a lot of the property owners, with a lot of the cities, with your staff here, to again get information and then start looking at solutions that would be developed to look at this. And so we began last November, and here next week, we're going to have a public meeting on next Wednesday on the October 28th. And due to our circumstances with COVID, we're doing an online public meeting. We really wish we could have a public meeting like we're used to, where we could rub shoulders with everybody and help answer their questions. But we'll be doing that online next Wednesday. And I'll get into a little more information on that here in just a little bit. So what did we find in the last year? We found that by putting a new interchange on I-15, we can reduce some of the delays that we're seeing today and we'll see in the future there at 4 South, that 4 South interchange, with a lot of the congestion we see there at the interchange and backing onto I-15 mainline. So we see some improvements in traffic congestion, as well as we see some safety improvements on I-15 itself and along the 2700 North, 1600 South corridor. And we also see an advantage and an opportunity to provide some bike and pedestrian improvements along that corridor that we've heard some of the residents in that area want and need there. So our preferred alternative that we're going to show the public next week shows a SPUI interchange, or single point urban interchange. That's a fancy term we use for what you see at 4 South there in Springville. It's going to look very identical to that. So you'll have an interchange there. There'll be new auxiliary lanes going down to US 6. On the southbound side, you know, you guys are well aware that that exit ramp is quite a ways north of US 6 and Main Street there. So what we're showing is that that auxiliary lane will be barrier separated. So someone going south from this new interchange will go through the US 6 intersection before they'll be able to get on I-15. We weren't able to provide instant access to I-15 right there. There's just too much weaving going on with people wanting to get off to go to US 6 or Main Street and people wanting to get on to I-15. So in order to make this safe, that auxiliary lane will be separated by a barrier and traffic will go through the lights down at US 6 and then get on I-15 south of there. We also provide an auxiliary lane for the northbound direction between US 6 and the new proposed interchange as well. Along the corridor, well, let me back up. The new ramps there that you see, the on and off ramps for I-15, it does require us to have to relocate the frontage roads in there that are adjacent to I-15 to continue to provide access. So you can see in that northwest and southwest corner, those frontage roads have been relocated. And we've been working with your staff and some of the development plans that we know are coming in that area to try and plan accordingly and to accommodate that new development that's coming. And then on the northeast side, we also have a new frontage road there that'll have to be built to provide access into that industrial area there for Springville. So along the corridor itself, the plan is to widen 2700 North to 5 lanes, 2 lanes in each direction with the center turn lane. It'll have 10-foot shoulders that can be used for bikes who want to be serious about biking. We also plan to put a multi-purpose trail on the south side of that corridor that'll be 10 feet wide, that you see a lot around with the stripe down the middle of it so that people can ride bikes or jog or walk along there in both directions. And then also sidewalk on the north of that corridor. So huge improvements for pedestrians and bikes.
Will there be a light at Main Street when you get?
So yes, there will be a light at Main Street, and that'll depend on the growth. When this gets constructed, they'll look at that to see if that needs to happen immediately or if that can be staged. But for the ultimate solution we see here, there would need to be a light there, yes.
Okay.
So, yes,
So question, you said the lane would be 5 lanes,
5 lanes.
all the way down to Main Street as well?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So, and what we're showing here is our ultimate solution, that we use 2050 traffic volumes to make sure this works. We're planning way out ahead. Currently, though, UDOT doesn't have the money to build everything you see here. They do have funding set aside for this project, so the project's gonna have to be phased. And the first phase that they have money budgeted for and is to build the ramps for the interchange. They'll tie into the existing bridge that's there today. So originally it's gonna look like a diamond interchange, but that'll get that interchange built. And then future funding will have to come in and finish the rest of that project. So it will be phased a little bit. And then last thing here is, as Kent or Mr. Millington has mentioned, the railroad crossings to the east of I-15 there, those are planned to be consolidated and combined. Our preferred alternative shows a grade separation or a bridge over the railroad there. Because of its proximity to I-15, we just want to make sure we can get people up and over there safely and reduce some of the congestion for stopping for a rail crossing there. So what are our next steps? Like I mentioned, we've got a public hearing scheduled for next Wednesday. It's going to go from 6 to 7:30. We're going to record that, so if anybody isn't able to attend that, they'll be able to watch it later. We're going to give the same presentation, go through the information you're seeing here tonight, and then we'll allow people to give us comments, and then we address and answer their questions. Some during that meeting, and if there's any that come after that, we have to address those as well as part of our study. We have to advertise this process for the environmental assessment for 30 days. So we started that on October 13th. So our website, and then we have a copy at your city hall as well as an Orem at UDOT's region headquarters. So anyone can go look at that. They can get online, go to our website. They can view anything you guys are seeing here tonight. We'll go over that again at the public hearing and then provide us some questions or comments. And we've met with all the property owners that are affected with right-of-way on this project, so they're aware of what UDOT's planning and what they're looking at, and we've tried to answer their questions individually with them as we've met with them. So, last one. So, again, hopefully if you guys get questions, we have a website set up, we have an email address, we have a hotline people can call. So we have 3 ways that anybody can get in touch with our project team. If you guys happen to get questions that you'd like us to help any of your residents with, please send them our way and we'd be happy to meet with them and address any questions they have. So, any questions for us tonight?
I have one.
Yeah.
Back to the map, if you can, somebody reverse back that map.
Yeah.
And I know I've been accused of being a Spanish Fork homer many times before, but I'll do that in a public meeting again. I know we're talking about what happens, or what's already built down here and going to be operable early next year in Spanish Fork in the hospital, right? And that's a huge regional center that's built in South Utah County again, that this helps. But Councilman Gordon and I met again with a business owner in this area, and so in a public meeting, I just wanted to maybe restate this. 5 years ago, it was made known to us that is the #1 FedEx client in the state of Utah. So that's in Spanish Fork. And so when we start talking about the traffic that comes here, goes elsewhere now because they can't get off there.
Right.
That is the #1 client of FedEx in the state of Utah. I mean, that's putting us up against warehouses in Ogden, Salt Lake City, Provo, or you name it in the state of Utah.
Right.
But they are the #1 client of FedEx. And so I'm excited to see this happen because it cures a lot of things that our residents are frustrated about, but the commercial aspect of it that we all try to make sure that we're growing and protecting in Spanish Fork is that as well. So I hope you hear that during the public comment session. And in case you didn't, I wanted to make sure that was out in this meeting. But
I haven't heard those statistics, so I'm glad you brought that up. And, I should have mentioned too, our schedule is to complete this environmental assessment at the end of this year. UDOT's planning to move straight into the final design and start purchasing the right-of-way they need for that phase that is funded. That'll take a year through 2021, and then they plan to start construction early 2022 to get this built. So it's not very far away. There's a lot that still needs to be done, but it's coming quickly. So,
Two questions for you.
Yeah.
On this map, the grade separation over that UTA track to the east, is that something that is phase 1 or is that phase next?
Phase next.
Okay.
Phase next. We've called that phase 2. That's our next priority, and UDOT is working to try and get funding for that as well. But so far, that is not funded to date.
Okay. And any, I'm not looking a gift horse in the mouth here, but any thoughts or ideas of when phase 2 is? Is that 10 years out, 20 years out?
I'll let Darren, he
You'll
knows
let-
that better
You'll let
than
Darren
I
have that
do.
hot one.
Yeah.
And before Darren comes up, maybe ask this question. As I look at this map and I look at it cruising eastward towards Mapleton, I remember some conversations with Mapleton folks when we talked about this project. This is probably 5+ years ago. They said, we're not big like Spanish Fork and Springville, but don't forget about us. And I told them, we think of you as our little brother or sister, and so we'll give you at least scraps from the table, right? No, but in seriousness, what are the concepts and thoughts of that road, 2700 North, crossing those eastern railroad tracks and somehow connecting to Mapleton?
So we've been working with Mapleton as part of this, and they're well aware of what's going on too. But really, our study ends at SR 51.
At the 51.
And
Okay.
we're showing where ours is in, and they're gonna have to pick up where we end and get across and connect into 89. So they know a little bit of information more than they did because they know where we're ending. But that's really gonna have to be looked
future
into
project.
further in that next phase. And that's on MAG's plan. It's in the phase 2 that's supposed to be built between 2031 and 2040. So it's planned to happen, and it's gonna happen. It's just, I don't know the answer of that yet, but it's coming as
Thank you.
well.
And Darren, yeah, gave you enough time to think of the answer of. And I gotta say, I haven't ever worked with you, so I don't have the ability to state anything definitive about you, but you seem like a great individual. We get to work with Darren on a regular basis as well from UDOT, and he does a great job coordinating and communicating with us. Frankly, probably the best that we've ever had in terms of that relationship. He's taken our relationship and our communication with UDOT and built even better. It was good before, but with Darren and the work that he does even better, so we appreciate that. And with that buttering up, I'm looking for like a 2025 answer. That's what I'm looking for.
We'll move things up because of that. So anyway, in terms of the grade separated bridge, as an update to that, there have been several attempts in the last year to get funding to do phase 2 in conjunction with phase 1, which would give us that grade separated overpass. That hasn't happened yet. It's always comes up as part of a legislative item, and we just haven't quite got across that bar yet. So unfortunately, I'm not able to provide you a definitive answer when that could potentially happen. I imagine that with the development pressure in this area, once that interchange opens, that there will be significant pressure on people who are in decision-making positions to do something. You've got the hospital that's coming in, as you mentioned, and there are significant delays when the train comes across that corridor and stops to offload and do its thing. I was there early on in the project, and I waited for a half an hour. That kind of delay will quickly become unacceptable. So personally, I don't think it's going to be that far down the road, but at this point, we can't make any promises or guarantees.
All right, any other questions? If not, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks.
We
Thank you.
appreciate that report, and the same thing, use both hands and hurry up, you know?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's go to consent items.
Motion to approve the consent items.
Second?
Got a motion by Councilman Gordon, a second by Councilman Argal. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, public hearing, ordinance Z 13-20, changing the zoning designation and amending the official zoning map of Spanish Fork City for the 430 North duplex zone change.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You've seen proposals like this a few times in the recent past. There is an existing single-family home on the subject property that would be removed and replaced with a duplex. Should this proposed zone change be approved, the subject property is located at 430 North, 600 East. And there's really honestly not a lot more to say about it than that. You have a site plan with the staff report. You have some proposed building elevations and different things like that. As proposed, the project does meet the city's requirements for this type of development in that zone with the infill overlay. And both the Development Review Committee and the Planning Commission have recommended that it be approved based on the findings that we have in the staff report and subject to a couple of conditions. I think a few of those, in fact, might have already been addressed, but at this time, staff would also ask that if you're inclined to approve this tonight, that you make it subject to the conditions that we have listed in the staff report.
Okay. Since this is a public hearing, we'll open this up to, I'd entertain a motion to go into public hearing.
Motion to go into public hearing.
Second?
Got a motion by Councilman Gordon, a second by Councilman Argal. We are in the public hearing. Anyone that'd like to come up and address on this subject, you're sure welcome to. Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to go out of public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Mendenhall, a second by Councilman Gordon. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Any questions, comments? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to approve ordinance Z 13-20, changing the zoning designation and amending the official zoning map of Spanish Fork City for the 430 North duplex zone change based on the following findings and conditions. Or adding the findings and conditions from prior meetings. Is that okay?
All right, got a motion by Councilman Gordon,
Second?
second by Councilmember Beck. This will be a roll call vote. Councilman Argal.
Aye.
Councilmember Beck.
Aye.
Councilman Gordon.
Aye.
Councilman Mendenhall.
Aye.
That passes. All right, FY 2021 City Budget Revision number 1. Take it away, Ken. Hope you brought candy.
They're leaving.
Well, you have an effect on people like that.
I know, we're talking money. Today we are revising our city budget. It's an active budget, and I've emailed you the document, and I also put a paper one there on your desk there if you'd like to look at that. I'm going to walk through a couple of pages on it. If you have any questions as we go through, feel free to ask me. The reason why we're adjusting our budget is there's some capital projects that we are planning to do, and now we're getting more information about those projects as we get closer. In July, we issued some sewer bonds for $73 million for some sewer projects, and as we start working towards those sewer projects, we fine-tune what we're going to spend during this fiscal year that we're in until June. We're going to issue bonds this Thursday for the water bonds, about $11 million, and those projects are also fine-tuning of what those projects are going to be. We've had 3 capital projects that 2 of them are concluding, which were the all abilities part. We're getting those final bills in on that and finding out the ending costs, and also Station 62. That was a finished project in the last couple months, finalizing those. And as we begin our new city library, we are getting more and more costs that are identified in that. So those are some projects that we're adjusting. And the last group of projects are street projects, having talked to UDOT and UTA on different types of projects. Spanish Fork, if you drive around, you can recognize there are a lot of street projects that we're doing. Some roundabouts are being finished. Corner of 8th and 8th is a big project. Canyon Road's a big project, so there's quite a few projects. And also the Spanish Fork Parkway project that will connect the East Bench down towards the commercial area. So if you turn to page 2, or page 1, I guess, the second page, you'll see that the pie of the city's budget It is, this new budget and revision will have a total of $132 million, which is an increase, but it's mostly bond money that's planning to be spent, those proceeds from the bond money that the city has increased. So if you turn to page 2, you'll see the overall increase to the city's budget is about $8.6 million. It seems very high, but there are some big projects that are being done and finished in the enterprise funds and also in those miscellaneous capital project funds. I just want to highlight a couple of areas. If you turn to page 3, it talks about this is our general fund revenues. We are receiving our budgeted numbers for sales tax are increasing a little bit. We were up conservative, I guess is the better word, for our sales tax, and we anticipate that those sales tax dollars will continue to increase and come into the city. Budget, and also down in Sundry, there are some land sell some property the city is selling, and one other increase that you'll notice on this side is the in the bottom of one of the last numbers is the RDA. RDA is a separate entity of the city. We'll have a public hearing in a few minutes on the RDA, but the way the RDA works for this one is the Corona. I did it to make sure you understood what I said. The Corona RDA, which is Icelandic money, the currency in Iceland.
I think it's important to note that we use the word krona before the world used the word corona. It's important that everybody understand that.
And it's not
Who
a beer.
discovered America?
I'm just saying, we Spanish Fork, we tapped
Yes.
krona.
There you
Actually
go.
said, what, kroner?
There you go.
So don't be confused. It's not corona.
Corona.
And it's not that either.
Nice try.
So the way that the RDA works, I can explain it in a few minutes when we get to the RDA section, but some of the sales tax that is collected in the Canyon Creek area is committed back to the developer over a certain number of years, and as they build more stores and capture some of that sales tax going back to them, then we budget them as we estimate what that amount's going to be. And so we're increasing that amount of that transfer because there are more stores out there and they're being successful out in that area, which benefits our residents and also benefits the city. On page 4 is a summary of the expense side. The other one was the revenue side. This is a summary of all the departments of services that the city provides. That's a lot of services. You know, a city government is a lot of service, from police, fire, ambulance, to library, cemetery, recreation items. There's a lot of services, and I'll come back to that in just a minute. But in the general fund overall, we're anticipating an increase of about $500,000 in the general fund. In a few moments, you'll have a discussion about the salaries and salary ranges and stuff. And so inside this budget is a small amount adjusted in for salaries, and I'll let Seth and someone else talk about the salary increase. On page 5, it's our miscellaneous funds that aren't the general fund, that are not the enterprise funds, but they are miscellaneous funds, which are capital project funds, debt service funds. Our RAP tax is a special revenue fund inside there, and also the RDA is inside there. So you can see inside the capital projects, there's a large increase of $3 million. And I'm going to walk through what a couple of those are, just so you have that information in front of you. So as we go through page 6, 7, 8, and 9, these are some of those capital projects. One is the river reclamation. It's increasing for some of the work done along the river trail. That Poplar Lane trailhead is one of the projects that's being finished in that area. The second one on page 7 is the fire station. As we finish that up, we are actually having some of the expenses decrease as we finalize the construction of that project, and so it's a decrease in that capital project. Page 8 is the parks, and there's a couple of parks inside this capital project. One is the All Abilities Park. We're anticipating final payments on that construction. and also the continued of some of the other development parks. There's a park inside Legacy Farm that's along a corridor of the big power lines of Rocky Mountain Power, and we'll continue on. We spent about $200,000 and $300,000 last year. We're going to spend another $600,000 for that park along that corridor to finish that corridor park this year. And last capital project to talk about is our library. The new library continues as far as developing, getting closer and closer to the time when the church, the old church next to us, will be demolished and a new structure will be built, and we're anticipating what will be spent as we head into the construction of that new library. So we're going to increase a little bit in the capital projects of the library. The next section of funds are the enterprise funds, which are the utilities, our water, sewer, electric, solid waste, the garbage, the storm drain, streets, broadband, those types of services. Some of those projects are increasing because of the sewer bond and the water bond as we zero in on what projects will be done during this year, if there's any questions on those. An interesting page I inserted this time is page 11. It talks about the expenses in the general fund and enterprise fund, just to give you an idea of the different categories, what the city spends when you think across the board of types of expenditures. And if you look at the top three lines, our city is a service-oriented, providing services, and so a lot of that is in labor. And you can see that the city does provide income as far as employees that work for the city that provide those great services for our city. You can see a couple of big items down there. Line number 40 is power purchases. Just to let you know, the city buys power and then turns around and sells it to our residents. And the city, did you know that it was around 17 million that the city buys in power from our power supplier UMPA, and we turn around and sell that back to our own residents. So,
Will you remind me what sun-dry means?
just miscellaneous,
Okay.
kind of an accounting word for miscellaneous. You can see in this budget, you combine all the capital projects that we have, so we have about $40 million in capital projects, and that is very large. So Chris is smiling over there because most of those projects are his. The problem is trying to spend that much money and to be able to find the time to spend it. Some of our debt service is changing because of those bonds, and so that's an increase once we now know what our debt service for those bond issues are going to be, so we adjusted up the debt service part for the city. Quickly going through the rest, a couple pages is there's the summary of the water fund, summary of the electric fund, summary of the storm drain fund on page 14. If you have any questions of those, we can discuss those. Feel free to call me or Chris or Seth about any of those capital projects that we do have. The last part of this document, it talks about some of the rate changes. There's a rate change, a little small one in the SFCN. We just want to make sure we get those rates approved. It's for at-home service, for at-home Wi-Fi. If there's a question on that, I want to make sure we got the airport wings and wheels in there. And also, over the summer, we increased, had an adjustment in our impact fees. I want to make sure that they're discussed in a public hearing, that they're those new impact fees that are affecting building. So with that, it is an increase in the budget, mostly because of bond issue type things. Request after the public hearing have their input that the council approve 132, 124, 430 as a new budget for the city. Thank you.
Mayor, before we jump into public hearing, I think with the public hearing needs to include the salaries, the salary schedule. So if we can take out of the new business that item, and we'll just have Tyler do the presentation for that so it can be considered as a part of the public hearing. And then you can approve or act on that when we're done with that public hearing. But while he's getting things ready, let me just say one thing, maybe three things briefly. there are, as Kent reviews the budget, there are still several positions that we had requested. We heard through the budget process, you recall back in February, and in the budget processes that we go through in the spring, several positions that we have not yet put into the budget. And this doesn't add those positions. This budget doesn't add those positions in public safety, parks and recreation, public works, and I may be forgetting some other departments. And we held those off simply because of the Corona COVID times. And so we'll continue to evaluate those, but I want to make sure that we understand that those positions and the possibility of those positions, the need for those positions still exists, but the funding yet hasn't been identified. This budget is absolutely capital project heavy. As you look at, we continue forward, about $75 million is what it takes to operate the city on an annual basis. But our budget is significantly more than that, and the majority of that more, well, all of that more is capital projects, about $40 million in this budget, and we'll continue on. One of those, of course, is that sewer treatment plant, which we've been working on for a while, and that's not a surprise to any of you. But those projects, as Kent mentioned, sewer, water, different parks, the library, Station 62, really are a function of growth, and our ability to do those things now and pay for them in the way that we have it's a good development on our part. We are managing things well. We've been able to capitalize on bonds and getting rates that are incredible, and we've been able to plan for and do these projects in a way that we can really take advantage of the time if advantage is to be had. And so as you look at that budget amount, there is some jaw-dropping that may occur. Our city's budget is how much? But if you think about it in the operations and maintenance, the city's budget's about $75 million. And then these capital projects, which are one-time projects where things are being built, really do add volume to the fact that Spanish Fork is growing and we have needs that need to be met. So with that, Tyler, go ahead.
Take it away,
All right.
Tyler.
Well, normally we have this conversation, probably a council meeting before this, but we do it in line with the budget actually. This year is a little different with COVID. Just to clarify, what we're going to talk about here are the ranges, the actual ranges that the employees of Spanish Fork City are paid in. And these ranges we update every year around this time. And the way we do that is we, can you click to the next one? It's not going. Sorry. We compare to 15 cities. Those that are still in red there have not updated their salary ranges this year. So as you can see, we've got 12 out of the 15 cities that have updated. That's pretty typical as far as the response we get. We've had 14 some years, 13 a couple years ago that were in by this time. So that's an overview of some of those cities that we compare to. The reason we choose these cities is because they're comparable in size and positions. So we're able to take the positions that we have here at the city and more easily benchmark those against these other cities. If you go to that. So last year, the average market adjustment, let's see if you remember. You guys remember what the average was? It was 1.98. This year, it's a little bit more conservative at 1.38%, which may be as a result of some of these other cities holding back a little bit, being a little bit more cautious because of the uncertain economy right now. So here's a snapshot of the ranges that we have. You can see we go from a pay grade 3 up to a pay grade CM, and the data on the left is for fiscal year 20. You'll notice it says effective September 28, 2019, which is part of our fiscal year 20, which runs from July through June. And you can see kind of the change year over year there, and the change year over year on the right for fiscal year 21, which these numbers have not been adopted yet. That's why we're here tonight, is to get your your fillings on this and go from there. So you can see that difference of about 0.6% year over year. We're down just a little bit this year. If you'll go to the next one, Nick. So those are for our full-time positions. Part-time positions, the way that these numbers are calculated is it's taken off of the average increase. So that 1.38% is the percentage that the midpoint of these ranges would go up. And then Nick, if you'll go to the next one. One thing I think that's important for the public to know is that these ranges, that's not exactly what people are being paid. They're paid in their range based on their performance. So depending on how well they perform, they're paid anywhere from the minimum all the way to the maximum point on there, with that midpoint being kind of the driver. But any questions on our salary study this year? All right. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Tyler. All right, we'd like to go into a public hearing.
So moved.
Got a motion by Councilmember Beck, second by Councilman Mendenhall. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone from the public that would like to come and talk about our budget or our salary increase? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to go out of public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Councilman Gordon, a second by Councilman Mendenhall. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any questions, comments? If not, I'd entertain a motion. We're approving both, right, Seth?
I move that we approve fiscal year 2021 city budget revision number 1 and the salary range adjustments.
Got a motion by Councilmember Beck,
Second.
second by Councilman Argal. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. New business, FY 2021 city budget. Whoa, how come we got that twice?
Well, that way, make sure it gets adopted, which it just did,
So we're good
Yeah.
there.
and the salary schedule.
All right,
as
well, okay, so we're good. So I can move down to C?
Look how efficient Councilwoman Beck is. I mean, bam.
Wow. I'm almost impressed. All right, Resolution 20-23 approving the various amendments to the Spanish Fork City Employment Personnel Policy.
So periodically we have some changes that have to take place in our personnel policy manual. I've tried to highlight a few of them here on this slide. The biggest changes are, number one, we've changed our policy on concealed firearms. We've added a new section that addresses employees carrying concealed firearms while at work. One thing that's important to talk about on that is that when they do carry a concealed firearm at work, they are doing it in their own personal capacity. They're acting outside their scope of employment, which means if there are any damages or liabilities that come as a result of them carrying that, it's something that they would have to deal with personally. It wouldn't be the city that would be liable there. Another big thing that we wanted to hit on was make sure that to try to keep employees safe and help them to feel safe while at work with this change in policy is to make sure that the place that they're carrying their concealed weapon is in accordance with the laws set forth by the state of Utah. And so they wouldn't be allowed to store them in a desk or a filing cabinet or other areas where they might walk away. So the employee might walk away if they stored in a desk, which at that point maybe somebody else could come in and inadvertently take the gun and do something else. So we put some safety parameters in place in the policy as well, so that's a change, as we've deleted some language in our policy that prohibited handguns at work and replaced it with the new section on concealed firearms. Any questions on that specific policy? Okay. Also, we added another bullet point in our harassment policy addressing the display of materials that represent any type of hate or discrimination against protected classes of people, prohibiting those. And then we also changed a definition in our ambulance bill waiver for our employees. So benefited employees, year-round part-time employees, firefighters, our EMTs, if they or their dependent that is under 26 years old is transported in an ambulance, that is a Spanish Fork City ambulance, then they have the ability to have that bill waived. And so that was a clarification. Before, the policy said that your dependent had to be claimable on your IRS tax return. And this made it a little bit more simple for our employees to understand and for administration to administer. And then the last thing was we had a few different policies that had some contact information that had changed, some links that needed to be updated, some minor clarification changes to help make it easier for our employees to understand. Any questions on those changes? All right, thank you.
All right. Seeing no questions, I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve resolution number 2023 approving various amendments to the Spanish Fork City employee personnel policy.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Mendenhall, a second by Councilman Gordon. This is a roll call vote. Councilmember Beck.
Aye.
Councilman Gordon.
Aye.
Councilman Mendenhall.
Aye.
Councilman Argal.
Aye.
That passes. All right, public hearing for FY 2021 RDA Budget Revision number 1.
I move we adjourn to our redevelopment agency.
Second?
Got a motion by Councilman Gordon, a second by Councilman Argal. All in favor, say aye.
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 We are now in RDA.
So this is the RDA budget. It's, you sit as the city council and city council meeting. Now we're in RDA. Now you're the RDA board. And I left on your desk the RDA budget. And if you can see, the only change that we're going to make in this one is corresponding with that Canyon Creek development. And it's in the Corona.
Very good.
The third column over, you can see that there's income coming from Spanish Fork City at $1 million, and there's a disbursement of $1 million that going out. That's an estimated amount. When we see what throughout the year, we're estimating it might be a little bit less than that, but those are the commitments to the Canyon Creek area for that year. So it was originally budgeted at $500,000. Now we are anticipating increasing it to $1 million that in that sales tax area. So with that, there's no other change in the RDA budget than what was already passed in August. Thanks.
All right, we need to go into public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Gordon, a second by Councilman Mendenhall. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone from the public would like to come and talk about our RDA budget? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to go out of public hearing.
So moved?
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Argal, a second by Councilman Mendenhall. Any questions or comments? If none, I would entertain a motion.
Motion to approve public FYI 2021 RDA budget revision number 1.
Second?
Got a motion by Councilman Argal, a second by Councilmember Beck. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. I guess that covers the new business too on RDA. Okay, so I
Move we reconvene back to city council meeting.
Second?
got a motion by Councilman Gordon, second by Councilman Argal. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're back in normal city council. Item number 12, speed limit change.
A while ago, we had a discussion with City Council on some areas where the speed limits actually warranted to go up on some streets. And we wanted to approach this kind of methodically, doing one at a time to see how best to change the speed limits. First road that we adjusted was 1400 East, and we did a pretty extensive survey of the speeds before and after it over a 3-week period before and after of what the speeds were. And just for your information, the speeds were 25 miles per hour before. It warranted to be 30 miles per hour on that road. And so we did change the speed limit to 30 miles per hour, and the average speed essentially remained the same. If you look in the red boxes, if anything, it went down a little, but basically the speed stayed the same, and kind of shows that there really was no negative effect on this area for raising the speed limit as far as the average speed goes. And so it's our recommendation that we continue with the other changes, but maybe just do them a little quicker than we had thought, since this went so smoothly and seemed to be well accepted.
Great.
Okay.
Any questions for Chris?
Which one are you going to do next?
1700 East and 2300 East, and then also the Spanish Fork Parkway and Center Street. And unless you direct otherwise, we'd probably just proceed to doing all of them, not really phase them anymore.
Councilman Gordon would appreciate it.
Okay.
Have you had any comments?
I haven't.
I had a couple neighbors, because I drive 14 and 17 every day, and a couple were worried when I told them that we were going to do it. But then I've talked to them since it's happened. They're like, oh, we can't tell. So I think it's just that initial shock, and then they're fine.
Yeah, I think the little the paint at the edge of the road, the fog lines,
Right.
kind of helped too.
I think so too.
Yeah, it gave a better feel for them.
And it is interesting that we don't necessarily drive the speed limit that's posted. We typically drive what is comfortable regardless of what is posted. So you won't likely notice any changes because people are driving the speed that's comfortable already, which might be 30. And so this is just making that.
So on I-15, when I'm going 80 and I get pulled over, I can just say I'm more comfortable going this speed.
And just
I didn't
quote-
say that it wasn't against the law. I said it was what you were comfortable with.
Officer, I'm more comfortable at this higher speed.
There
Thank you,
go.
Chief.
You heard it from the chief.
And maybe I identify as someone who drives 80. Maybe that works. I don't know.
Try it, Stacy, and see what happens.
I'll
So let me
report
know.
back.
Yeah, report back.
Yeah. Thanks, Chris.
We should specify Stacy's car. This is her.
Yeah, let's put
She
a big neon light on it or something. Okay. Gordo.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Gordon, a second by Councilman Mendenhall. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you for everyone that was here and watching.